I would love to hear from, you're the first person who has been a child victim of this, who's now grown, aged out, that I've spoken to. And it would be really, I think, powerful for people to understand how this affected a child. I've been talking to your mom a little bit, and what I would really like to know from you is, you had 3 guardians ad litem appointed in your case. There was Bruce Hilton, Brian Dunlap, and Mark Keisweiter. All 3 of those people were supposed to be appointed for your best interest. How did you feel about those people? Did you think that they had your best interest in mind?
I did not. Whenever they would visit, they wouldn't really ask that many questions. They would make me and CJ talk, like they would make children tell their story rather than like prompt us with questions. And whenever we spoke to them, they didn't seem to really care about what was happening. And I told this to Tim, but if they had just looked, they came to my father's house. If they had just looked in the cabinets or the fridge, they would see that we weren't being fed. And if they had looked at my body, I was 50 or 60 pounds at the age of 10. They would see that I was obviously malnourished, and they just, I guess, didn't observe that.
And can you remember telling them about the neglect and the abuse that you suffered? And do you remember how you said it to them? Like, what did you say when they said, tell us what's going on?
I can't remember. I know that I was really vague with my answers because they would come to my dad's house where I stated that I was uncomfortable, and they expected me to be completely 100% honest and open about what I was saying, but I couldn't because my dad was listening.
Oh, was he in the room?
He was in the house, and the house had really thin walls. Like, I could hear him every single moment at the house, so obviously he could hear us.
Well, so you feel like they didn't do an inspection, they didn't look in cabinets, they knew what the allegations though were. They knew that your mom had said you were being neglected and not being fed well.
Yeah.
And then they didn't bother to make an inspection.
That's right.
Do you remember, which one of the guardians do you remember the most?
Which one was the bald one? Was that Brian Dunlap?
Yeah.
Yeah, him.
What was it like interacting with him?
He kind of was, I don't want to say smug, but I guess condescending. He was really buddy-buddy with my dad. Like, you could tell that their relationship was more than neutral, which I don't think that should have happened. And so whenever me or CJ would tell him stuff, he'd just be like, okay. Like, he just was not very receptive to what we were saying.
Mm-hmm. Did he ever try and tell you that your mom was making up allegations of abuse, or she was alienating you from your dad?
He said that he was worried that we were being coached.
And what did you say to him when he said that?
I said that we weren't. I mean, him and my dad both kept saying that we were coached, and I was like, I don't know how to prove it to you that I'm not being coached, because whatever I say, you'll just think I'm lying. So I don't know. I was like, we're not being coached. I don't know what to tell you.
This went on for how many years? Like, when you were how old when this started, and how old were you when it ended for you?
So I was never really in the loop with what was happening with court, like when it stopped or when it ended. But I remember being in, let me think, first grade. So I was like, 6? And then I remember, I believe I was 14 when I stopped seeing my dad. And I remember court still happening at that time, so I want to say 13 or 14 when it ended.
How did you stop seeing your dad?
So I had, on many occasions, begged my mom to not make me go over there. And so for, I believe a 6-month period, I didn't see him, or it could have been 4 months, but I stopped seeing him. I guess he gave up. And because I was over the age of, 11 or 12, which was when my siblings were able to, I guess, take control of themselves in the court's eyes, I used that to my advantage, and I used my age as an excuse. Like, I know that I don't want to be there. And he stopped calling the cops, and the cops started listening to me if they did come.
Mm.
So it was an ongoing battle, but
He used to call the police
yeah,
on you if you didn't come to see him?
they would make me go, yeah.
Would they take you there physically or make your
No.
mom take you?
My dad would just take us.
Oh, he would come with them?
Yeah. Well, there were also times where I would call, like, my mom would call the police because I'd called her saying I'm scared at my dad's house because he was being really angry and, like, violent towards me. And then I would pretty much cry to the cops, and they'd be like, sorry, you can't go. Or you can't go with your mom, you have to stay here.
That's
oh,
true. That's true.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You told police that your dad was being violent with you, and they didn't do anything? They didn't investigate that? What kind of violence?
So the one time I remember is that my dad had told me to be home by 4 or 3, and I had come home on time, but he misremembered when he told me to come home. He didn't look at his text, I guess. So then he went out looking for me and called the cops to look for me. And so whenever he got home, I knew it was going to happen because this happened before, but it wasn't as bad. And I called my mom, and I said that I know he's going to come home and be really angry. And so whenever he did get home, he backed me into a corner and was, like, yelling in my face. And then he raised his hand like he was going to hit me. So then I peed myself and I ran to the bathroom. And after that is when the cops came, and my mom came with her ex-husband, John. And I begged them to let me come with them. And then the police brought me back into my dad's house. And I told them what happened, and I was crying. And they said that they can't do anything about it, and then I have to stay with my dad.
Yep. At that time, it was, I believe I had full custody.
But it was his visitation time, so they allowed it. The police allowed. I don't understand why did they ever write a report about that incident? They had to have if they made an appearance there. Did anybody get that report from the police from that incident?
I don't believe they wrote a report. And to go a step further, when it went to court, my attorney subpoenaed that cop because the cop told me that he knew and was a wing nut, out of control. And then when we subpoenaed him, he told my lawyer at court that he's not going to say a word.
I know that when I think I was 3, my brother Matt had called the police because my dad was chasing him around the house, and I'm pretty sure he pushed Matt into a puddle of water, and Matt fell and hurt his arm. And then I remember Matt getting a hold of the phone and calling the police, and my dad screaming to put the phone down, like screaming at Matt, like chasing around the house, like yelling at the top of his lungs. And then I guess Matt dropped the phone and the police came. And then I remember my brother, Junior, having to take me out of the house and my dad going in the cop car.
And that's the incident. That's the incident where he was only given anger management classes.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Megan, did you ever go to court and see Judge Hemphill? Did you ever speak to her? Did she ever ask you to talk to her?
I went to court once, but I went into a room with a GAL, and that was it. I never saw anybody else.
Which GAL was that? Keisweiter?
Yeah, it was. I was pretty old at the time, so, and he was my last one. So yeah.
How old were you?
I think I was in middle school.
You're about 14.
Yeah, I think it was 8th grade.
So you never spoke to the judge? The judge never said, I want to speak to the children. I want to hear what they have to say. You never got a chance to tell the judge your story?
No.
Wow. So who was speaking for you? Supposedly the guardian?
Yep.
And do you know what the guardian said to the judge on your behalf?
No. I was never told anything about what they said.
How old are you now?
I'm 21.
How do you feel like this experience through the St. Louis court system has affected your life?
Well, there are instances where I should have called the police and reported things, but I haven't because I was taught that nobody's going to listen to me, and if they do, then they're just going to lie about what I said.
So you've been a victim of other crimes that you have not reported?
Yeah.
Were you forced to go to therapy through the court system? Did you have to see Dr. Reid too, or other therapists?
I don't remember her name, but yeah, I was forced to see this therapist who was absolutely awful. And I actually used to record our meetings because the blatant lies by my dad. He he manipulated her into being on his side, and I would tell her things in confidence, and she just would not believe me. And she told me that me and CJ we need to feel sympathy for our dad because he's going through court, and court is hard on a parent.
Did they ever say that about your mom?
No.
Megan, when you were going to that therapist, how many times, do you remember how often they made you go?
Once a week, I believe.
For about how long?
Like 4 or 5 sessions. It wasn't that long.
It wasn't that long. And so her purpose was to see what was going on in this case, right? She was trying to put some sort of evaluation in front of the court. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And you felt that she did not listen to you, that she just made excuses for your dad.
Yeah, and CJ, for the first time, was outspoken against my dad, and he had never done that before as explicitly, and they would not listen to both of us. We were telling the same stories, and they just didn't believe us.
What did he say for the first time that he had not said before?
He said that he hated my dad. He said that he hated my dad because he would be, like, we used to say he would be really mean to us because we knew that emotional abuse, it wasn't really taken seriously, so we would just say that dad was really mean to us and he would yell at us.
Do you feel like you've blocked out some of these things?
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to get therapy on your own to help you?
I was seeing a therapist in 2019 and talking to her about, it wasn't necessarily just my dad, it was just like trauma in general. But I had to stop seeing her because my father lost his insurance in June, so I was no longer able to see her.
Did you find that was helpful?
Yeah, because she listened to me and she told me, she's like, yeah, you should really cut your dad off. Like, she was on my side. Nobody else was ever on my side. I haven't really looked back into getting therapy because I honestly don't have the time.
Because
I don't have time. I'm in 6 classes and I volunteer for 4 hours a week. I don't have the time for therapy at the moment.
Sure. What are you studying?
So I'm studying psychology, sociology, and Spanish. I'm planning to switch over to sociology. I'm getting a graduate degree, and I want to be a professor.
There's a lot of kids right now, I think, who are suffering in this court system, going through what you were going through. If they were out there listening, what would you want them to know?
That things will get better, that soon enough they'll be of age to where they don't have to rely on their parents anymore, and they can be self-sufficient, and whenever they are, they don't have to have a relationship with them anymore out of guilt, because I felt guilt. I still feel guilty for hating my dad, and that's why I still have a relationship with him, sort of. But eventually you don't have to be forced to having a relationship with them anymore.
How are your siblings doing?
Well, I don't really know because I don't really have a relationship with any of them.
Oh, you don't? You don't talk to them?
No.
I have my children are a reflection of this battle. One doesn't talk to this one, that one doesn't talk to this one. It's just sad and terrible.
But generally, we all agree that our father is horrible.
Yeah.
But it's more about, obviously, we all experienced abuse. My older siblings experienced physical abuse more than CJ or I did. But growing up and having severe childhood trauma really affects your emotional intelligence and interpersonal relationships. So we are pretty much all incapable of being in the same place at the same time. Well, I had the privilege of having a degree in psychology, give one semester. And I believe that my degree has really helped me work through my trauma. I mean, obviously it's hard to talk about, but it's not debilitating, and I would rather talk about it than not talk about it, especially if I can help other people. And so I have the words. I know I have diagnoses. I know what happens with my diagnoses. I know why I have them. I know in depth the effects of childhood trauma. I know how childhood trauma happens. I am pretty much the perfect person because I have become so self-aware because I wanted to take psychology and get a degree in psychology. So I feel more inclined and more comfortable talking about it than my siblings because of my degree, I feel like.
Megan, you were saying that you understand childhood trauma, and I wanted to ask you if you felt as if you were not only traumatized by your dad, but did you ever feel that you were traumatized by the people involved in this court case, by the people in the system?
I don't think it was very overt. Like I said, I did internalize that nobody will listen to me, and I honestly don't like men being the ones to have to help me. I've only ever had female doctors, female therapists. So they've taught me to fear men and that men won't help me. But I don't know if that is trauma or if it's just a learned response.
What about the attorneys involved? Sue, did you have did anything happen with Matt Eilert specifically that bothered you?
Not at the time. Well, they're believing his lies. Okay.
Well, Matt Eilert was on that leaked Zoom call between all the guardians at Litem and, colluding against a defendant. So I'm just curious about that because...
Here's a sidebar. Okay. So just like a couple years ago, I saw Matt Eilert out socially at JP's Corner and Helen Fitzgerald. Okay. And we had some discussions. All right. And he told me that he always thought I was a good girl.
Good girl. That's awful phrasing.
And I thought, well, you didn't act like it, dude. And then when I saw that leaked video and I saw he was involved, and I've been Googling like crazy, anything I can find on this, I put it together. Okay. That the last round, Hemphill didn't even give me child support for Megan, although I got full legal on her. And every other weekend visitation for him, she didn't give me child support. So Mike Tote talked me into filing an appeal. So I can just now see Matt Eilert and Hemphill and Keisweiter all getting together and Mike Tote deciding that I can pay more money and they can get more money by her not giving child support.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't start coming together until I saw these videos. So I still am very much processing and trying to remember everything. And there's so much, but that sticks in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Where she should have just ordered it. Did you get it when you appealed?
Yes, I did. However, I don't believe I saw a settlement for that. So in the meantime, I contacted Mike Tote's office and told them to get my records to me.
So you believe that your attorney was colluding?
I believe it now. I didn't then. I was very naive, but again,
how much money do you think you paid him over all of this?
20,000 maybe. I had to pay attorney Matt Eilert 15,000. Jim Reid made me look terrible.
What did we were going to talk about Jim Reid. So did he make you take that 500 question test?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you took that. And what did he say it said?
Megan read it. I'm not good at.
Oh, great. Well, the psychology major should tell me about it. What did you see on that on the test?
Right. So I only read part of it because I didn't have a lot of time, and I also didn't feel like reliving trauma. But the psychiatrist said that my mom showed signs of personality disorder because she, quote, presented herself in a more favorable light. So he pretty much, that's what he said. And I know that's not a personality disorder because everybody does that.
And you think Jim, so he said it suggested a personality disorder. Did he suggest which personality disorder?
He just said unspecified, I believe, because obviously it does not fit with any personality disorder.
What's an unspecified personality disorder? I don't.
It does not exist.
Does that exist? You're in psychology. Have you ever had a class on unspecified personality disorders?
No, I took an abnormal psychology class, so I learned about every single disorder, and those don't exist.
They don't exist. This is unbelievable. Okay, so you had to pay him $1,000 for that report. Is that correct, Sue?
That sounds right, yes.
Okay. And they use this unspecified suggestion of a vague personality disorder in court, And what do you think the outcome of that was for you? How did that affect you in court?
Well, it basically handed me over on a silver platter. And it wasn't necessarily the diagnosis he gave. It was all this verbiage about me, which had none about. So yeah, I firmly believe it was thrown into the mix to show what a horrible person I am, and slammed me, gave me no child support. He didn't have to pay for child care or medical, which he had been ordered to.
How would it make it okay for him not to pay child support if you had a personality disorder, which is protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act in the first place? So let's just say that you had a personality disorder.
Mm-hmm.
How would that mean he doesn't have to pay child support for his child? I don't even understand how the two are related.
Well, I guess that they aren't directly related. That was an outcome, okay, of this.
So you felt like that was part of it, that the fact that
yes.
he lied on this report, that he said this weird, vague personality disorder, that allowed the judge to order him not to pay child support?
Again, I can't say what thought processes they had to lead them to lead Hemphill. Okay. I just know that this report was so favorable towards him and so disfavorable towards me. It was unbelievable.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
I forgot to mention this, but in the conclusion paragraph of their emotional state, they had asked if they ever had my parents, if they ever had any homicidal ideation. And the ending quote from my mom was how she was angry that I peed my father scared me to the point of me peeing myself. And the last quote from my dad and his was, "I have dark flashes, but I try my best to overcome them." I don't see how anybody would give me to a parent who has dark flashes suggesting homicidal ideation.
It's still hard for me to put this all together because I have forced myself to forget it for years, to live in peace. They cause so much tension and additional stress. If they just would have done the right thing, we all would have been saved years of damaging behaviors and damaged relationships, and I wouldn't have gone bankrupt. Yeah. So
you went bankrupt. You've had financial losses.
Oh my God, I couldn't sustain it. That last round was, I think, about $50,000, and I just have never really had an easy time financially. When I was married, out of control spending, we were always broke. Now I'm divorced and I'm trying to make headway, and I'm spending thousands and thousands of dollars to try to keep my kids in a better situation. And and I took out loans. I borrowed from my father. I have a second mortgage on my house, which I'm still paying off. And charge cards, I was in debt paying them. And I just couldn't do it anymore. And I filed for bankruptcy at the end of 2018. I still have the $43,000 home equity loan. I'm paying off until I'm dead, probably.
I'm doing this. I don't know if this will be the outcome, but I'm doing this to get the psychiatrist license revoked, and I don't want any of the GALs that I've had to have their job anymore.
Yeah.
Ditto.
And you're talking about not only Jim Reid, but the psychologist that you had to see, that we don't have her name right now, the one who wouldn't listen to you. Correct?
Yeah, I don't think that she should have her license anymore.
Yeah. When you take classes, and do you do anything on licensing? Do you know what the ethics are for psychiatry, and what would you say they violated in your case?
Yeah, so I took a forensic psychology class, which was really helpful for me to understand what happened to me, and I learned the APA ethic guidelines. And I don't really have them pulled up, but I know that endangering somebody is one of the biggest things that you can that you shouldn't be doing for the ethical guidelines. I mean, they're very strict about their ethical guidelines, and so it's not really hard to break them. And both the psychiatrists directly put me in danger. They endangered me. So that is one thing I know off the top of my head that they have broken.